Hey everybody, so I figured I'd put this video out tonight because Destiny 2 is dropping its new expansion tomorrow, and then we're also getting the new Call of Duty game on Thursday, which I'm going to play the fuck out of the campaign and zombies, probably a little bit of multiplayer. Yeah, it's a big week. There's gonna be lots of shit going on. I'm super fucking excited. But yeah, I want to put this out tonight because I hit 600 hours recently in Guild Wars 2. This topic is fresh on my mind. So I'm going to be doing a video very, very similar to my first impressions video, and that it's going to be a pros and cons video. And so this is going to be coming from somebody who has of course put over 600 hours into the game. I've been playing the game for almost 7 months straight. Basically, almost every day I have at least logged in and played for a little bit. Um, and yeah, the game is great. If you want to try it, go for it. It's free to play. The leveling experience is honestly one of the better leveling experiences. It's not like you're playing the game and it's like, well, the game doesn't really get good until max level, so the trial is kind of pointless. It's one of those games where you can kind of get the feel for it. Obviously, it is going to get better, but it's not fucking garbage at the beginning of it. Um, so yeah, this video is going to be much more complex in terms of its topics because, well, it's not just going to be, oh, I like the events, and then that's kind of like, world bosses are fun and blah 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 blah. This game's going to be this video is going to be a bit more complex in its sort of topics in a way. So my first pro here is the game is naturally social and brings people together like no other game I've ever played. This game really, I mean, it's just naturally social. Like I said, like you're going out in a world, and because of the fact that the game is primarily focused on open world content, you're going out in a world and you do an event, and oh, another guy pops up, and oh, another guy pops up, another guy pops up, and all of a sudden you guys are working together to defeat the mobs or doing whatever the objective is to get that event done. And what's really cool about it is it's not always going to be extremely face rolly because the events actually scale depending on how much people are actually in the event. So it's not going to be ridiculously face rolly, and also you're not going to be going into like lower level zones and one shotting mobs of like every ability you have. No, the game scales you down, so it's not face roll easy, and it makes old content sort of more relevant. And you're not fucking up other players' shit. If you're going into a heart or whatever, and you're killing mobs like easily, you're killing all of the mobs in the heart. It's not going to make other players frustrated because that's just simply not a thing. Other players are still going to have not a hard time, in fact, an easier time probably taking down the mobs um, that are in the hearts, and are doing the various different objectives that are in the hearts. And yeah, that's just something I really appreciate about this game is just how it brings people together so easily. And one thing that I really really enjoy also that definitely helps out is if you're on a lower population map. So if you're on a map that's not going to have a whole lot of people in it, it'll actually give you a notification and be like, hey, do you want to transfer to a more high population map? And it'll also give you a bonus for transferring too, which is really, really cool. To give you like an XP bonus for like 10 or 15 minutes, which XP is always going to be very, very nice in this game because it at least is going to give you every level past 80. It's going to give you a spirit shard, which is very, very nice for doing a mystic forge and getting gold and stuff like that. And then you also have the mastery system as well. And yeah, so no vertical gear progression past Ascended is fantastic as well. This is another pro. A big issue I have a lot in MMOs is the continuous gear progression. And that is basically it just being numbers. So, right, in like Final Fantasy 14, for instance, with I think each new patch, the item level of the new gear goes up or whatever. And there's really, honestly, no point for that to be the case. It's just like, hey, we're gonna make a really lazy way to keep these players playing every patch, and just oh, there you go, new item level. We're just gonna put the numbers and shit higher, and boom, you're good, right? No, Guild Wars does away with this. We don't have that bullshit vertical gear progression that's extremely lazy and completely pointless. Instead, we actually have other vertical systems like masteries, for instance. Masteries are like the biggest vertical system, and that is masteries were released quite a bit. I mean, not as often as like gear and shit like that in other games, but there's new masteries coming, relatively often with the living world updates. Um, and they are basically just natural abilities that we can have to help us out in various different ways. So, for instance, in let's take Path of Fire for instance, right? The mounts. It'll give you more availability, like a more not availability, but like more things to do on that mount. So, like the Raptor, for instance. Um, there's one will it'll basically have the tailspin. It'll do more damage. The Springer will have it so the Springer takes less damage from fall heights and stuff like that, or like fall damage. And the Skimmer has an underwater one, which is really cool. That came out recently. And there's just tons of these really unique and cool masteries that kind of enhance the gameplay that just feels so good. You have the Corteria one where basically it will auto loot things on the ground for you. That's an option, but you don't even have to like press F on them. They'll just automatically loot items for you, which is really helpful and really, really cool. And yeah, there's just tons of that kind of vertical progression that really it feels meaningful and not completely lazy and stupid like gear progression does in a lot of other games. And I know that kind of sounds bad to some people. Like I know some people love gear grind, but personally, I did for a while and I was like, well, that's kind of stupid. But then I played it and I realized how fucking pointless that gear grind really is. And there still is vertical gear progression, but past ascended gear, there really is none. And in reality, you really only need exotic gear. Ascended gear, I think, is only what, like a 7% upgrade or something like that. Which, in my opinion, if you're going to play the class a lot, I think it's still worth getting ascended gear because it is an upgrade. But it's not entirely like you don't need to get the ascended gear to really, do most of the content in the game, which is nice. And for fractals, you do because of Agni Resist, but that's a different thing. Next thing here is open world content being the primary focus. Now, for some that might sound bad, like raids are not the primary focus. Fractals, which are basically the dungeons, only come out like every 6 months. I mean, what the fuck is this shit? And open world content is amazing in this game because of how absolutely fucking massive it is. There are so many people with you, like 50, 100 people going and doing these world bosses and meta events with you. It just feels fucking fantastic. It truly is massive. You're not going in 4, 8, 10, 12 people, 12 person parties, 24 person parties like in Final Fantasy 14 and stuff like that. No, you're with a shitload of people, sometimes even NPCs, tackling big giant meta events, which is like the biggest like end game thing you could do in this game. Like that's not, instance content. Which they do have endgame instance content, but the primary focus is the meta event system that they have in the game, which definitely requires a lot of people to be able to get them done. And yeah, it's just fucking fantastic. I just love how massive this game feels. It feels massively multiplayer. Even doing these in the background, I am doing these just regular old dynamic events. I'm not even doing the meta event. There's still a few people coming with me, and it feels like I am truly on an adventure, and that I'm kind of taking place in a little mini battle that's on the roads of Grothmar Valley. It just feels really awesome. That's just something that I love about this game that really no other MMO game that I've played really does that. And it helps even more that the game wants to bring people together. This is something that this game has massively over other games, and I still don't understand why games don't change to this model, is that mobs, no matter how much people are attacking that mob, will give you the same amount of XP as the other people who are doing it, which is just fantastic. There's no split XP. There's no, oh, you only 5 people can attack this mob and then that's it. No, everybody can attack it. Everybody shares that XP. Everybody, uh, you know, there's like nothing there. I mean, the nodes don't disappear because of a person. Gathering nodes don't disappear because of a person already gathered it. Stupid shit like that. No, the game, like I said earlier, is naturally social, and it does its best to not disencourage that sort of socialness and drive people away from interacting and being with each other, which just feels fantastic. And another thing that I love about this game is that the end game is non-linear. It's not just dungeons and raids or a couple other things. No, it's really whatever you want it to be. And for a lot of people, that might sound lazy, but for me, that's a fantastic end game point. The fact that you could just basically go and do whatever you want and end game is whatever you want to be is just like fucking cool. Let's say I want to earn a mount skin or whatever that's in the gem store. I want to go ahead and earn some gold, so I'm able to transfer that to gems, so I'm able to buy that mount skin that I want really, really bad. And so now I need to go in some gold. So how am I going to earn this gold? Right, I can go farm volatile magic for the Dragonfall event, or hell, I could just go about it casually and go and do these meta or these regular dynamic events in Grothmar Valley and just get the volatile magic from event rewards and from the map bonuses, which basically, depending on the activities that you do in that map, said map, whatever map it is in the game, the map it'll actually give you bonuses for doing those things. So you'll actually get more loot and shit like that, which is really, really cool. So like every other event or something, you'll get a bonus reward. So like more volatile magic or more map currency, whatever it is. And it's just really, really cool. I love that how the end game is basically whatever you want to do. You want to go and explore and do jumping puzzles, go for collections, achievements, just go and get the sheer amount of masters you possibly can. You want to collect literally every single minion in the game. You want to get every single mount skin in the game, something like that. You can go and do that, which just is really, really cool. It's just whatever you want it to be. There's no specific focus on whatever the end game is, right? And that's the definitive end game. No, it's just whatever you want to do. And there's traditional MMO endgame content. They have raids, they have fractals, they have dungeons, which are not really updated too much, but fractals are essentially the new dungeon. They have strike missions. They have, I think, even they have a new strike mission sort of thing coming out next week with the update that they're doing next week. And yeah, it's just really, really cool. The next thing that I value over a lot of things in a video game nowadays is that the game respects your time. This is especially important in Western games. The Western audience really demands for something to respect your time, right? Because, I don't know, Eastern audiences with a lot of their games are way more grindy and, are generally unappealing to the Western audience. So it is very, very nice to have, that sort of thing where it respects your time. I don't even know why I even brought that up. That was kind of pointless. But the game really respects your time, and it doesn't ever really feel like like a grind. The only grindy thing I've ever done in this game was like the Sky Scale and the Griffin, and that was really it. That's the only thing where I actually felt like a sense of grind. I was like, oh, this is fucking dumb. I really don't want to go through with this. But they were still rewarding at the end of it. Um, and yeah, the game never really feels grindy to me, which maybe it does for other people, but for me, even deep into the end game, that will always what end game I want it to be and shit like that, I don't ever feel like a sense of grind, and that's because the game is really, really rewarding and really caters to like the casual player, which I know a lot of people are like, "Wow, really?" But you can still play the game pretty fucking hardcore. I know people who have over 6,000, 10,000 hours in the game. Some people in my guild have that, and yeah, it's fucking insane. You can still play a lot of the game with people but yeah, that's something I really, really respect about this game is it values values your time. It always has, and hopefully always will. The next thing that I love about the game is the living world updates. Now, I know a lot of the community doesn't seem to like them, but personally, I really like them. As somebody who enjoys open world content and just going around and exploring and doing dynamic events and going and seeing what cool little things I can find and going and doing hearts and, doing map completion and stuff like that. Those are my favorite things to do in the game, and world bosses and meta events. The living world updates are always like really fucking cool. And that's because a lot of the time they bring new maps or expand upon the current maps, bring new masteries. Of course, there's new story content. There's always some sort of cool shit to really look forward to, even in some of the smaller ones. Some of the more recent ones actually haven't had voice acting because of COVID, but now they're doing better with that and they're starting to implement voice acting into them, which is cool. Um, but yeah, there's always like some sort of new content to look forward to. And the game doesn't butt fuck you with new content, which is amazing. And I know that sounds like bad, but some of my problems with other games is that the game like constantly comes out with content and really feels like they're always like, come on, play my game, play my game, play my game. Where this game is like, you want to go and play other games? Cool, we're taking our time developing this content. We're good. We don't need you to come and play right now. And just shit like that. You can go and you can, take a break from the game for a few weeks, few months, even a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then you come back and you don't ever really feel like you're that much behind, at least in comparison to other MMOs. And that just is such a fantastic feeling. Is the feeling that, oh yeah, all right, I'm gonna go take a break and I know that I'm gonna be fine when I come back. It's so fucking awesome about this game. That's something that I just absolutely adore about it. Um, and a living world is just such a really cool system, and it usually comes out every 3 to 4, maybe sometimes 5 months. And yeah, it feels regular enough to the point where you have shit to look forward to, and there's not like massive content droughts or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, but since the time I've been playing, there's been like 3 living world updates that have come out already within the past 7 months, which is fucking crazy. Yeah, So the next thing here is going to be the fully voice acted story. Now, I never really valued this until I played Final Fantasy XIV, which like literally half of that entire game is like not voice acted, which just feels like fucking shit. It feels like shit having to like go and really read all this stuff. And I know, like, well, why don't you just read it, right? You fucking lazy bitch. But the problem I have with that is that the voice really complements the character and it really gives the character um personality, you know, like it's like, what if you were watching a Marvel movie or like a movie and you imagine that character, right? You imagine Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, and what if he didn't have a voice? What if you're watching that movie and he just didn't have a voice and his mouth was just moving and you had to read the subtitles? I don't really get that sense of character and that sense of personality from that character, right? And that's my problem with Final Fantasy XIV and games that don't really implement a lot of voice acting is that, you know, Ritlock Brimstone wouldn't be nearly as badass if he didn't have that deep, raspy voice that he has now. Um, and that's something I value a lot in this game, and you know, like Elder Scrolls Online as well, is that the game implements a lot of voice acting and really puts a lot of work into its voice acting. Sometimes the voice acting isn't very good, but at least they're putting it in, and they even have like really good voice actors like Nolan North. They have fuck, I forgot the guy who does it. He plays Ritlock. He plays Dempsey, and you know, in the Call of Duty Zombies and shit like that. And yeah, just really, really fucking cool. I love how they do that in this game. Build variety is another thing that's a lot of fun. There's just tons of build variety, and it naturally encourages you to experiment and you know come up with builds that you enjoy playing and stuff like that. And that's something I really, really enjoy. That I'm not going to go deep into. Fractals are really fun and really, really rewarding. Now, we're going to put in the con later about fractals, but generally they're pretty fun to play, and they respect your time a lot and give you plenty of rewards for the amount of time it takes for fractals to, you know, be completed. And also another thing that I really like about Guild Wars 2 is the fact that you can earn gems, which is very, very welcomed and is a very, very cool thing. So you can earn the microtransactions essentially, and it's not like, oh wow, that's really fucking hard to earn. Like once you know like good ways to earn gold, it's pretty easy to earn, you know, gems in the game. And honestly, for the game, like I really don't mind dropping money on this game. I don't mind. And that's something, you know, that is cool. I mean, I really don't mind dropping money on this game because of how much it respects me, and you know how much fun I have with it. You know, it's not a game that's wasting my time or anything like that, and that's something I really, really like. And as somebody who's going to be hopefully getting on their feet pretty soon because of fucking COVID, um, that's something that I'm going to really, really like in the future. So let's go and get into the cons now, shall we? So I want to preface this before we really get into the cons. A lot of these are really subjective, so they're not really going to be, you know, um, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are probably going to disagree with these. So let's just go ahead and get into the first one. Most of the story is really uninteresting to me. Like it's just not interesting at all. Straight up, like that's definitely a problem. And the design of the story missions are usually really, really boring. Like I remember when I was taking down Krakatork in the what was it, War Eternal, the first part of it. Um, it was really fucking annoying. Like it was really boring. It's fucking Krakatork, and it's like this is just super boring. I'm not sure how it is when you actually kill Krakatork, but um, a lot of the story design is really bad. And you know, when I went through the personal story and I experienced the end and went to Zayatan, and I had that awful, awful boss fight, the worst boss fight I've ever played in a video game. I was like, okay, it's got to get better. And a lot of the story design is just really fucking bad. It's not very fun. And generally, I'm just not interested or, you know, attached to the story at all. No, I am attached to some of the characters. I really like Casimir. I really like Ritlock. You know, just some really cool characters. I mean, Timey's really cool. The path to Fire story was actually pretty good. I'll give it that. I actually kind of like that story. Um, but generally, the story just really isn't that interesting and is not very fun to go through. But that's not that big of a deal considering I basically never really do the story content because it's not interesting to me. And yeah, this might be a bit controversial as well. Obviously, this is subjective. The expansion music fucking sucks. Like, I cannot name a single track in the expansion music that I'm like, wow, that's really cool. Or the base game music was fucking orgasmic. It was absolutely fantastic, and I think it's because they had Jeremy Soule in there, who is the absolute master of ambient music. I mean, literally the best music composer I've ever heard when it comes to ambient music. I mean, Jesus H, fuck, you are fantastic. I want to meet that man. I want to shake his hand. And the year when I turn 21, I want to have a fucking beer with him. Just such an awesome fucking guy. Um, and yeah, but a lot of the music is pretty bad. I ain't gonna lie. And lack of updates for Fractals also kind of sucks. I think Fractals come out like every 6 months or something, which is really, really poor. You look at games like Final Fantasy 14, for instance, like every patch has like a new dungeon, or even like sometimes 2 dungeons, and it's just, I don't know. It's kind of annoying. This game obviously puts its priorities in other places though, which is perfectly fine because of its open world content. But definitely, it does feel kind of shit. When I'm doing a fractal and I'm just doing the same ones over and over and over and over and over again, it just, I don't know, it doesn't feel good. Even though they are continuously expanding upon them every 6 months, there's like 25 different fractals now. I don't know. It just doesn't really feel that good to me. Um, the minimum price for gems is $10. This is a point I had in my first impressions video as well. But this is something I don't really like. I usually like having a $5 and $2 option, and sometimes you just overspend on gems and you have gems left, and you're like, what the fuck should I do with it? And a lot of times I just end up converting it to gold, which I know for some people is going to be a bad thing, but personally I love it because it hampers illegal gold selling, which is always a fucking cancer in a lot of MMO games and is just generally really fucking shit. So I don't mind that personally, and it also makes it so you can trade in gold for gems. So that's perfectly fine with me. And yeah, and then also a lot of the gem stuff that comes out, especially nowadays, is limited time for like 30 days, sometimes 2 weeks or whatever, which can, I ain't gonna lie, that's pretty garbage. That's a pretty shitty tactic. And this is coming from somebody who absolutely fucking adores this game. It's kind of hard for me to call it out like that, but I have to. It's really shit. But generally, considering how good the game is, I will forgive it, and I'd love to see it change. I'm never gonna stop not liking that system, but I will give it a pass because of how great the game actually is. And oh, also they have loot boxes too, but the loot boxes are fucking pointless. Like, there's really no point to even go at them. They're just fucking stupid. And nowadays I'm definitely less extreme about loot boxes. Like, if the main, like microtransaction is the loot box, and I have a problem with it. Like Overwatch, Apex Legends, shit like that. But most, like the vast majority of things in the game are direct purchase. So really, there's like the Black Lion boxes, and they don't really give you a whole lot. They're just generally not worth buying at all. So personally, fuck it, I don't care. I still am very anti loot box, but in this game it's whatever. Um, and that's going to cover it, guys. Overall, Guild Wars 2 is a game worth playing. It's a game worth getting invested in and worth just loving. It's a fantastic game, and I highly recommend anybody who is at least even like kind of wanting to get into it, or at least give it a shot. Give it a shot. It's a lot of fun. It's very, very promising at the beginning, and really gets better as you go on, and really becomes just a fucking phenomenal game. Later on when you really start to get into it. And for a lot of people, the game can feel like there's nothing to do because of the fact that it's not linear. Like World of Warcraft, like when there's not content droughts, the game constantly feels like there's shit to do because of how linear and how it's like, hey, go do this, hey, go do this, right? It's kind of obvious on what you have to do. Or in this game, it's like, hey, go do whatever the fuck you want to do. And for some people don't like that. For some people, they want to have, like a guidance and show them what they should go and do and shit like that. But this game doesn't really do that. At least not to the extent of other games. I mean, maybe it's not as sandboxy and like do whatever you want to do, like in Black Desert Online, for instance. But yeah, I don't know. Do whatever you want to do. This game is definitely the most sandbox, like theme park MMO I've ever played in my entire life. Like, there really is a lot of like shit you could just go out and do, and that's all you could do if you want to do that. And yeah, peace.